Hi, my name is Naime, and in this presentation, I'm going to talk about the history of language teaching methodology. The history of language teaching methodology is like a pendulum. Look at this slide. This pendulum at the very beginning did not have any movement. It means that we didn't have any language teaching methods. It began its very first movement by a method called GTM, Grammar Translation Method. Grammar Translation Method is not a scientific method. As you can see in this presentation, it was based on some principles. Grammar Translation Method is called method, but it's not a method, a scientific method, because you cannot find any theory of language or any theory of learning supporting this method. So as you can see, the first method in the field of language teaching is a GTM, but again, it's not a scientific method. It is based on some main principles. What are the principles underlying this method? This method is based on classical humanism. Look at the slide. Classical humanism believes that language learning is like a mental gymnastics. Foreign language learning provides students with good mental exercise, which helps learning and which helps them develop their minds. To give the learners grammatical rules and examples to memorize them. So in this method, it is believed that language learning is a kind of exercise for our minds. So we are supposed to repeat and memorize in order to improve and in order to develop our mental abilities. The aim of this method is to help students read foreign language literature. For example, Iranian foreign language learners, English language learners, were supposed to read Shakespeare in order to learn English. Nowadays, this seems actually to some extent weird, but at that time it was used a lot. So for example, suppose that you are Iranian, you want to learn English, and in order to learn English, you are asked to read Shakespeare. So I want you to imagine this method. So this is to some extent strange in in these days. It is also called classical method. Why do we call it classical method? Because it was used in order to teach Latin and Greek languages. These languages were considered as the classical languages at that time. Therefore, this method is called the classical method. The type of interaction that is found in grammar translation method is teacher-student directed or teacher-student interaction. It means that the teacher is the whole authority in the class, and she's supposed or he's supposed to control all the teaching process. So students don't have any role. They are supposed to listen to the teacher and to do whatever he or she says. The teacher is the authority, as I just mentioned. Literary language is considered superior to spoken language. As I just mentioned, the language learners are supposed to read literature, and literary language, the type of language which is found in the literature, is considered the best and the a purest form of language. So the learners are supposed to learn that type of language, not the ordinary language that is used in everyday conversation. Uh, Culture is considered as fine art and literature. So, not people's everyday behavior, but culture and fine art form fine art and literature, form the culture of each community. You know that language and culture cannot be separated. So the view of each language teaching methodology towards culture is very important. Culture in this method is considered as fine art and literature, but not people's everyday life. That's again a point in this method. The language that is used in class is mostly students learn native language. You know, the word grammar translation method. So this method is based on translation. It means that the use of mother tongue and native language is encouraged in this method. And also grammar. Grammar receives priority in this method, and deductive way of instruction, formulas are used a lot in this method. So translation and native language, teaching grammar is prescriptive and deductive, as I just mentioned. Prescriptive, it means that we should write and say in this way, and that specific way is determined by literature. So not people's everyday life, not people's ordinary conversation is important, but what is written in the literature is considered as actually the best form of language that should be taught. As you see, grammar translation method, the pendulum starts its movement by grammar translation method, but this method has lots of drawbacks and disadvantages. It is not a scientific method, okay? That has been discussed, but it has some disadvantages. Paying lots of attention on grammar and grammatical structures, paying attention only to students' native language, could not pave the way for spoken language and for making a language learner competent in real life situation. Because of all these drawbacks, as you can see in the slide, the pendulum moves toward the other side through a movement called reform movement. Reform movement changed the whole story. Everything that could be found in GTM actually was changed completely on the other side. As you can see, direct method on the other side. So GTM, as you can see on the left side, direct method is on the other side. It means that these two are completely different. For example, if we have mother tongue in GTM, in direct method we don't have any mother tongue. If we have translation in GTM, we don't have any translation in direct method. If we have prescriptive grammar, we don't have any prescriptive grammar in direct method. If we have reading and writing in GTM, again we don't have reading and writing in direct method at earlier stages. So this reform movement changed everything. Reform movement was supported by Berlitz, Gwing, and American Phonological Association findings. American Phonological Association findings supports the importance of pronunciation and speaking. Therefore, these people alongside with APA paved the way for the development of direct method. Reform movement. In reform movement, the spoken language is primary, and this should be reflected in an oral-based instruction. The findings of phonetics should be applied to teaching and to learner training, and learners should hear language first before seeing it in the written form. As I just said, whatever we have in GTM, reading, writing, prescriptive grammar, were completely changed in direct method. Speaking and listening got priority, and then pronunciation got priority. So these two are completely different. Therefore, direct method was born. Due to GTM drawbacks, direct method was born due to GTM drawbacks and the reform movement characteristics, actually. This method is completely different. Direct method takes its name. Why do we call it direct method? It takes its name from the point that meaning is to be connected directly with the target language without going through the process of translating into the student's native language. Therefore, no translation is allowed. We call it direct method because it is believed that like the first language, like the mother tongue that language learners learn, they learn by speaking and listening, and then they little by little go to reading and writing. Learning a second language should be similar to learning the first language. Therefore, we should start with the speaking, listening, and then we move towards reading and writing. Direct method characteristics. It is based on communication. The interaction is both teacher to students and students to teacher. Pronunciation should be worked on right from the beginning. Grammar should be taught inductively. By inductively, it means that we should first present some samples, and then based on these samples, the learners could draw the formula themselves, and then a student's native language should not be used in the classroom. So as I just mentioned, if you don't remember the characteristics of direct method, you can change the characteristics of GTM completely. Then you are you can have the characteristics of direct method. So we have as I said, GTM, as you can see in this a slide. GTM, reform movement, goes to direct method. Then again there was a movement in the pendulum. The pendulum moved and it got close to GTM again. A method called reading method was born. As you can see, this reading method, at the position of this reading method in this pendulum demonstration is close to GTM. Therefore, you can actually understand that reading method and GTM share similar characteristics of reading-based method. So if you forget the characteristics of reading method, you can actually go to the characteristics of GTM and find some characteristics of reading-based methods, because these two methods are quite similar to each other. This method considers reading skills as the primary means of learning. The theory behind the method was that the students pick up the basics of English simply by learning to understand words and grammatical patterns from written text. This method believes that every single skill of language learning could be learned through reading. Speaking could be learned through reading, listening, reading. So reading is the heart of language learning process. The reading method believes that all language skills could be learned through reading. Reading skill is the most important skills based on this method. Speaking and listening are not taught at the beginning. And the whole point of reading method was to teach students just enough words to express themselves, as well as the basic sentence structural patterns. So grammar is important. Reading and writing are important, and every skill is supposed to be taught by actually this single skill. Okay, it's a big claim. How could reading develop listening skill? Okay, I just want you to think about this question. This method was not that much popular, but again, in order to help you to understand the process of language learning methods development, I brought that method here. Now, again, we move back to the pendulum demonstration. Pendulum, if you consider this pendulum, this pendulum continues its movement. Again, it got back to the side of direct method, and if you see this, pendulum, see, reading method was on the left side, but again, this pendulum moved to the other side, and the audiolingual method was born. Okay, so we can understand from this, presentation that audiolingual shares some basic characteristics with direct method. Okay, now let me guess, what types of skills are important in audiolingual? Speaking and listening, because audiolingual is close to direct method. Audiolingual is the first scientific method that we are going to talk about it in the following presentations. Then the pendulum continues its movement. It as you can see, the pendulum stands in the middle, and a method called CLT was born, communicative language teaching. Suggestopedia, silent way, and other methods were born as the result of this CLT. Actually, there are different views towards this, but as I just want you to consider this pendulum. This pendulum did not have, or let me correct it. This pendulum hasn't had any reform movement since CLT was born. It means that CLT is a method that from then on other methods share some basic characteristics with this CLT. I mean, Suggestopedia, natural approach, content-based, task-based. These methods share some characteristics with CLT. Therefore, there are not contrasting characteristics between CLT and the following methods. This was my presentation for my first presentation for the history of language teaching methodology. I used the pendulum in order to help you to understand this process. If you find this presentation helpful, please share it with your friends. Thank you.